The purpose of this conference is to ensure that we sensitize on technology uptake, promote how you can integrate ICT in education. We also want to use this conference as a platform to promote computer science education. And also, we want to look at a way where we can network, even as we establish strategic partnerships. What we are looking at is how the teachers can employ, the 21st century pedagogical skills in terms of collaborative inquiry and problem-based approaches. So how can you, as a teacher, pick up this in what you're teaching? At the same time, we want you to integrate ICT when it comes to the learning process, so that at the end of the day, you can improve on educational outcomes, where we know that key concerns are going to be identifying those technologies, and also in terms of digital capacity, that is your continuous professional development. At the same time, we want the teachers to be in a position where they can apply ICT in terms of research, administration, teaching, and learning. In many cases, you find either there's a bias in one area, and that's the kind of a bias we want to do away with. We have a teacher enhancement program, and it runs some of the courses, which is Art of Leadership. Also, there's a course on transitioning to inquiry-based teaching. Then at iLab Africa, our focus has been in ICT research and innovation. We also run entrepreneurship and incubation. We have been doing ICT outsourcing. Also, we do ICT policy research. So some of the initiatives that we have been running so far has been in professional development for the teachers, and also we have programs for the young people, or something like the Google Rise. That is one of them we have run. At the same time, we have run kids and teens ICT holiday boot camps. We have Ready to Work, and then we have one that is called Kids Can Code. And basically, this conference is in line with the Kids Can Code that we have been running with some of the schools. And I know also from this conference, we are going to also have some of the schools being part of a Kids Can Code program in the coming year. Kids Can Code Kenya, this is an initiative for the young people where they learn computer science concepts. And you have the various areas that we have been covering, which is the computational thinking, web design, coding with PHP, database design, robotics, animations, game development, and app development. So all these areas, we're also going to hold capacity building for the teachers so that they can be the contact people that is in the schools. So this is what we have been promoting in the schools. And I know going forward, it's something that we really want to partner with the teachers so that more of them can take up this, even as we start these clubs in the schools.
Yes, so for me to welcome you again to this conference. And I hope we are going to learn a lot from our presenters today. Let's keep focused, and if you have any question, you can type it in the chat and we can pick it from there. Thank you.
Mr. Mungai, I know has been part of promoting STEM related education in secondary schools, is from Semester. He has also been part of the team at Strathmore University promoting the teacher enhancement program. We have been with Martin in many of our programs. He has been giving talks on promoting ICT integration in schools.
Thank you very much, Kennedy, for that very elaborate introduction. I'm really indeed honored to join this great team, these great minds, even as we continue sharing and enriching one another in terms of making ourselves better teachers in our schools and also in improving the quality of our professional lives. My name is Martin Mungai, working at Semastea. Semastea is Center for Mathematics, Science and Technology Education in Africa. I'll be sharing a little bit about that in a presentation. And indeed, we're greatly honored to actually partner with Stanmore University on many occasions, and especially in terms of in areas of teacher enhancement programs, or what we call teacher professional development. Because we know a growing teacher in areas of technology, especially in the 21st century, is an important element in meeting the demands of our 21st century learners. And I'm pretty much sure a good number of you have been involved in a number of activities that are leveraging on online technologies to be able to reach out to your learners, to your students, so that in this essence where we have had a disruption in the face-to-face learning and education, that it doesn't stop, but it continues. And so therefore, at Semastea, we have been at the forefront in terms of championing the use of technologies to be able to reach out to our learners. It is Center for Mathematics, Science and Technology Education in Africa, which was established in 1998 as a program, by then domiciled at Kenya Science Teachers College, but later moving on to to run under the Ministry of Education in promoting science and mathematics education. And its primary goal was to upgrade the capability of young Kenyans in mathematics and sciences in our schools. Of course, there are many papers that had been written about the poor performance in those areas, and a way of trying to improve the performance of maths and science in our schools was sought. And so Semastea actually now became a fully fledged organization a couple of years later to continue providing teacher professional development programs. And these are implemented across the country in programs we call INSETs, that is in-service training for teachers. And so, for instance, during this COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen this disruption, and I've talked about it, that there has been a disruption in our learning, in our education sector, but education has not stopped. And, just during this period, Semastea has just concluded a professional development program for mathematics and science teachers. And this was actually done online. And as educators looking forward, now more than ever, we are required to look at education beyond the brick and wall classroom. Okay, and even like, leveraging on technology to teach and learn, of course, is going to be the new normal. We will be looking now at how we can use these technologies to conduct training. And we have seen this even at advanced levels, even at universities, and taking serious courses online, and you don't have to physically appear in the lecture room to be able to learn and continue learning. And so as teachers, we are required to continue supporting our learners. And of course, for us, like what worked as a Semastea, we were able to do this online, and it lasted 3 weeks, and we have continued to have many other programs. Indeed, as I speak, there's a program that is already running now, because we're also supporting STEM teachers across the country in 102 schools. It is actually going on as we participate in this conference. But we have had many successes in terms of training counter trainers, and over 10,000 mathematics and science teachers have actually participated in various trainings over this period that we've had. And these teachers are expected to put into practice what they learned during the training. And of course, I'll say that one of the things that we focused on was using easily accessible technologies like the Google Classroom. Okay, and then we were able to look at how they're able to navigate, looking at the netiquette, the guidelines, and the online safety, because it's very important, especially when you're dealing with children, on how you disseminate information and how you conduct yourselves online. So it is important that they are able to get the knowledge in terms of how they are supposed to behave. And of course, looking at key concepts in CBC, the new curriculum, when you're talking about collaboration and communication as a key concept, critical thinking and problem solving. And I was getting excited when Kennedy was actually talking about critical thinking and problem solving as one of the main skills that we need to improve among us or in our learners. Of course, like I said, the teachers being able to were trained on how to create Google Classrooms and how to use the various features in Google to conduct their training, okay? And then on something we call community-based learning, because with the skill set that these teachers have gained, we expect that they'll be able to train the other teachers in their staff rooms or within their school environment or in their neighborhood, so that there's an exponential uptick of this kind of training. And then, of course, as a motivation, we launched a program we called a remote learning competition, where we will be awarding teachers who have excelled in terms of conducting virtual training and virtual classes to train their students and to keep in touch with their learners, okay, during these breaks that we are having. Of course, we will continue supporting teachers to actualize this online teaching as a master, okay, and we have this project is to ensure that there is continuous support during this pandemic, that the learners are engaged virtually, and not just learners, but even teachers across the board. Okay, so from this training, we did a study, and one of the things that came out was very interesting, because we were able to get perspectives of the secondary schools teachers in mathematics and science, and we were able to collect much needed empirical evidence on the effects of COVID-19 on teaching and learning, and we were hoping, and we hope that the findings that we're able to make and we'll be able to contribute to the discussion, because this is an ongoing discussion on how best learning can be structured during COVID and similar situation when we have this kind of disruption in our lives, okay? Because we want a continued support even when maybe the schools break for holidays. I know there the proponents in the education sector who will say that during the school holidays, the learners are supposed to have a break. Of course, yes, but continuous learning, does no harm, and there's need to continue supporting the teachers. And I'll be able to share with you, some of our findings, in terms of the observations that we're able to get, prior to the training and of course during the training, and we're able to see that ICT tools and sources of information to support online learning, there are many, and teachers have been using different types of online learning tools, and of course looking also at the knowledge and the utilization of these ICT tools, okay? But also, in terms of the level of awareness in the usage of ICT tools, is also quite high, looking at the various tools that are able to be used. And interesting, I'll be able to share with this that from the participants, we were able to see, just sharing this with a lot of caution, but also just to give a picture of the kind of knowledge that and usage of ICT among our teachers in the country. And of course, a good number of our teachers are able to use smartphones, mobile phones, and laptops. but also interesting to observe that television as a tool that is very common in many homesteads was not among the, the very key devices that teachers would think they would use as a tool for learning, even despite the fact that the Ministry of Education had tried to, or even has actually continued to provide programs where learners can be taught using the television and so forth. But the mobile phone and the applications that are loaded on it, like Google Classroom, we were able to see a good number of teachers actually had knowledge about Google Classroom. They had a lot of knowledge about WhatsApp, which is very common. But also in terms of usage, it was quite down. The knowledge on how to use these applications to teach was down. But we could see that a tool like WhatsApp was very prominent. I think it's because, not I think, but basically it's a very easy tool to use in terms of sharing homework, in terms of sending materials online. It proved to be, one of the application that was very popular. So, and then in it, you can ask yourselves, what are some of the potential barriers of technological implementation for teachers? And of course, you would say at a glance, you'd say, they would say cost. You talk about time intensive, because it requires time to prepare, disruptiveness, either because of poor network coverage, the digital divide in terms of being able to use those gadgets. There are those teachers who are very well versed in terms of using this technology to teach, and yet in the same classroom or staff room, there are teachers who actually have no clue on how they can, or idea of how they can use the same gadgets to keep in touch with their students. And equally, even in terms of the students, the learners themselves, the digital divide is real. There are those who are quite vast with technology. And then, of course, the traditional mindset that, oh, yeah, we don't need to use that, and the lack of confidence, because this would be attributed maybe to fear of the unknown. I think that has been real, especially in terms of technology. Lack of infrastructure, again, technology. Then, of course, a few opportunities. But however, looking at what we were able to see is that, of course, teachers, a relatively low number of teachers were aware of learning platforms. And in this presentation, I'll touch a little bit on some of these learning platforms that we have continued to encourage our teachers to use, like the Google Classrooms, the Zoom platform. We're using one right now, YouTube, WhatsApp, Microsoft Teams, and many others. And we also saw that the usage for purpose of teaching and learning was also low. And where usage was high, for example, WhatsApp, it was for other purposes and not conducting live lessons or teaching as such. But several other reasons that were given, of course, limited knowledge in terms of what they can do with those gadgets. And lack of stable internet, I think that was the biggest problem that we have encountered over this period. There are many places where network coverage is not very good, and that hampers the uptake of online learning. Poverty levels because of limited available gadgets. Smartphones are expensive. That's a fact, and not every person can afford them. But also, we are also looking even at the connectivity cost, which is quite prohibitive, so that they're able to connect. So, of course, and then there's a low level of enthusiasm among some students, in the sense that they will think that it's a break. Let them enjoy. I want to watch TV instead of joining a class. I want to walk around, hang around with my friends instead of joining an online class. So, and those are some of the barriers that we were able to get. So, looking at ICT integration in this teaching and learning, we talk about three core components. that promote good teaching practices, because we talk about technological knowledge, we talk about content, we talk about pedagogical knowledge. Okay, when all these three are put together, at the heart of it is what we call the TPAC model. Okay, and I'm sure a good number of us have been are very familiar with the TPAC model. Okay, where you for the success of the integration of ICT in education, then you need the three: the technological know-how, how to use the gadgets that are available with you, what applications are you well versed with in terms of usage, and of course the content. As a teacher, this sits pretty much along with all of us as educators, that you get the mastery of content of what you're teaching. Then pedagogical knowledge, how do you deliver it? And when you talk about IBL, inquiry-based learning, so that the skill of critical thinking and problem solving is enhanced, all right? So that when you're teaching even something that is abstract as a teacher, the students or your learners should appreciate why are they doing it, the rationale, where else can they use the kind of knowledge they're getting in class, and that way it elicits some kind of interest. And of course, when you talk about addressing these barriers that we have just mentioned, the teachers are aware of the available ICT tools, resources, and platforms that can be deployed. That knowledge that they should have. Even that as teachers struggle with the skills and technological knowledge on how to use these tools and platforms, what are the educators doing in terms of assisting and supporting these teachers? Okay, and then are there opportunities? Of course, there are opportunities for online teaching and learning, okay, that are available either online or in through other areas, and they can be supported. And this, we know, will continue to address obstacles related to teachers' beliefs about teacher-students' roles in the uptake of ICT. Like I said, I want to mention something about some of the selected platforms that will support, or that we have used to support this learning management system, because they are varied. We have a number of those tools, but also we also need to ask ourselves, what are some of the features that you find in one and you don't find in the other? When you talk about LMS, a web-based system for training programs and information sharing between individuals remotely, like the learners have been doing, okay? And then we also say that these kind of online platforms that you choose as a teacher should go beyond conventional training, by recording, those are basic features, recording, the kind of training, managing individual training requirements, reporting training progress that would come under evaluation and so forth. And then, of course, we talk about that these platforms, of course, we are saying they have what we call heutagogy, or self-directed learning, as a way to continue supporting learning. You see, that in case there is a disruption, in case the network coverage is not very good, are they able to get their materials later and still submit their assignments on time? Okay, so we would just mention a few of them. I'll briefly pass through a few of them, like Google Classroom, WhatsApp, Google Meet, and so forth. Okay, but of course, I must put a disclaimer here that some of the features we may present at this time are the ones that exist, because as at the time of this presentation, because there has been a continuous development of this platform. Every day there is a feature that is added. If you look at the Google Classroom, for instance, when it started and the way it is now, it is totally different. A number of things have changed. Features have been added to it, okay, so that they make them better and more effective tools that support online learning tools. Of course, we've talked about Google Classroom. We have used it. There is a free one that members can use, that teachers can use, and sign up to, and have Google Meets and sign up to 100. And they can even upgrade it to a G Suite one, where they can have even over 250 participants in their meetings and so forth. Okay, and they were able to have recording features. Okay, the Zoom, like we're using, of course, is a tool that supports LMS. Okay, and through peer-to-peer software platforms, and you can join and you can share to a number of them. The free version, of course, you know, keeps on changing and can support 40-minute time restriction for the participants, and so forth. And then the WhatsApp, which is very popular social media tool, you know, they can use it for sharing materials, sharing materials such as documents, pictures, video clips, and so forth, and learners can actually continue learning. Okay, you can even, you know, have video conferencing and conduct some live meetings in the WhatsApp to be able to stay in touch and offer the kind of training that you require as a teacher. Of course, Cisco WebEx, you know, also is also available. It's a tool that we have used as teachers in different ways to reach out. There is, of course, the free version, but of course with some limitation. And in any case, when you wish to enjoy some of those additional features, you can always upgrade it so that you can have additional advantages. And the ExamNet is a good one that you know is easy to use in terms of when you want to set up or create and administer and mark exams online. It's a free application that teachers can also use to support the learning process. Then, of course, Microsoft Teams, which is also very great, and you know, it has all those other features that can continue to support learning. And the big blue button, an open source web conferencing system, you know, that is able to integrate with others, and you know, it has more or less the same those audio video sharing features. You know, have the breakout rooms, have the whiteboard as a teacher you can use, you know, to be able to use. And of course, they are easy to use and install. So, you know, we are saying that teachers have all these available platforms that they can use in their training. So maybe to finish, saying that the teachers' roles are changing. You know, our role as teachers, educators, is shifting from being knowledge transmitters to learning facilitator, to a collaborator, to a coach, to a mentor. And you're moving away from being the source of information, the primary source of information as teachers, and moving on to, you know, becoming a part of the learning process. And there's a quote that I like: moving away from being a sage on the stage to being a guide by the side. And, you know, it's very evident now. So question is, can teachers develop their own digital content? You know, I want to leave that as a question that as teachers, we continue to ask ourselves. And our role, of course, as teachers, you know, we have to continue creating, deciding what kind of online platforms to use with our learners, and then load materials, you know, invite learners into your class and teach, engage for this collaborative learning, and of course for to community-based learning, so that you don't work alone in your staff room. As a teacher, you need to acquire knowledge and skills, of course, and you require the support of your administrator, your principals, to be able to implement some of these online learning initiatives. And just ensure that this learning continues beyond this pandemic. It's not going to, I mean, we are not going to be home forever, but, you know, we need to continue supporting learning beyond this.
I would want to welcome my colleague, Linda, to make some remarks.
Thank you so much, Kennedy. I believe I had an opportunity to speak with some of you present some time back. My name is Linda Kwamboka, and I am an entrepreneur in residence at IBIS Africa, which is the business innovation incubator of Strathmore University. I'm an entrepreneur as well, and I'm very happy to see that we have all these teachers or educators present in this conference call. And I like the enthusiasm that I've received as feedback, because as Mr. Mungai has mentioned, education is changing, where the teacher is not the only source of learning or education. So you find that learners are getting different sources, they're utilizing different platforms. And now we're moving to the next age of how education is actually carried out. So with that, the interest that we have seen from the several teachers, and also I must commend all of you for those who participated in the first year project. I must commend you for being very supportive and making sure that the young, the students are able to join. You've supported them along the way using gadgets, making sure that the parents are understanding that education, this kind of computer science education is important, especially at an early age. And especially now that according to our education system, this is the point at which the high school students are actually trying to solidify the career path they want to take. So thank you so much for that support. As Kennedy might have mentioned, this is not just a one-year project. We're looking at a second-year project, and hopefully we can be able to move it even further and beyond the 2 years. And one of the important things is to look at, once these coding clubs have been set up with your support as teachers in your schools, how are we making it sustainable in terms of time and sustainable in terms of growth, and making sure that computer science is really advanced and quote unquote evangelized, so that then we provide a supportive environment for the students to really take it up. Because nowadays, all the creativity, the future, someone said, a fellow entrepreneur said, the future belongs to those people who have a platform, because they can be able to reach anywhere in the world. We're living in a global community, and data being very valuable at this moment, making sure that you know your customers, making sure that service delivery is actually very valuable, very it's of very good quality. That is where the future is. And helping these students really to get an opportunity to create jobs or to be very skilled workers, this is a really good path to take. And in terms of time sustainability of the program, we're looking at how do we merge or combine this kind of computer science education with the current curriculum that has been approved by NEC. So how do we make sure that it does not interfere or it is not deprioritized or set aside because the students have to go into their KCSE or KCPE mode? How do we integrate it in such a way that there's time share and it becomes part of their lives and their future, so that computer science is actually understood better? So that for me is time sustainability, and that's a very important question to ask. And probably, and I believe most of the answers are here with the teachers. Put it on the chat, give us your suggestions, so that we see how best we can integrate these coding clubs that have been set up in the different schools. Then yet again, once the curriculum, how then do we make sure that once the 2 years are done, that these trainers and the club leaders who have been appointed in the different schools, how do they continue enhancing their skills and also educating others? And one of the best suggestions that Kennedy and can learn, that we found and especially a very good case study is what Kajira Girls has done with Sote Hub in Taita Taveta. We found that kind of a symbiotic relationship to be very valuable, and that is how these young girls were able to build a solution to protect animals, wildlife animals. And actually, the young girls were incubated in Strathmore during our Standard Chartered Women in Tech program. So you've seen that transition where the teacher was quite interested to see how he can support the young girls in computer science, partnered with Sote Hub, and Sote Hub supported the process, including understanding what it means to build a product, build a business case. And these young girls actually are going ahead to innovate. Whether they become employers or even fail in their business, it's a good lesson. And the more we fail and the faster that we fail and help young people to really understand that they can continue building, the better. And that's how we're going to have better solutions out there in the market. So that partnership is quite important.
One of the areas we also want to encourage the schools is to use the networks for the alumni in terms of bringing them on board to support some of these clubs in the schools that you can set up. And I know that for some of the alumni are better placed in terms of promoting even ICT, because they are the champions of ICT, out here in the market. So if you can bring them on board in your schools, I think it would be a better way to even sustain some of these ICT integrations in your schools.
So that is how we look at it. How do we ensure that computer science education is also given a bit of priority and time in the schools? Any suggestions that there are, please let us know so that then we can work with you as guides to make sure that this is possible. And then finally, sustainability in terms of how do we build out these clubs to have the right people to support them as time goes by.
The next person speaking to us is Mr. Ian Wairua. He is the director of CTE, that is Center for Teaching Excellence at Strathmore University.
Thank you very much, Kennedy, and good afternoon, everyone. Very happy to be here. Mine is going to be a bit short. It's going to be a step back. I want us to just briefly step back a bit and look at the context of everything that we are talking about. Of course, we as educators, as teachers, we are responsible professionally for our students. And for years, we've been talking about learner-centeredness. We've recently been talking about things like making sure our students have a rich experience of learning, a rich experience. So we want to improve the environment in which they learn, expand the learning spaces, increase access, and so on. Because we are aware that indeed, when somebody spends 12 years of their life in school, it's a significant portion of life. So it's not just that they're passing by and therefore we are only looking at the final outcome. No. We want them to live a rich life. But now, recently, we have become more and more aware of one other aspect that's very important for us. And it is ourselves as educators, as teachers. We need to take care of ourselves. The entire education sector and the growth and development of the young people is on our shoulders. If we don't take care of ourselves, definitely we cannot achieve our goals, the goals of education. And so my part today, very brief, is just to request you to turn around and look at yourself just briefly. And so I'm going to talk about teacher enhancement. What really is this? Well, I don't want to go into theories and give you a lot of jargon. I'm going to keep very, very casual in my talk today. And what basically I want to do is propose a number of questions which I ask myself on this topic, which I believe are the questions that set out, map out the background behind the issue. And to ask the first question, I'm reminded of this news story which I saw a few days ago on the net. A 4-year-old Belgian boy called Chris, who spent 6 days in a coma suddenly related to COVID-19. You may have seen this story. It was shared widely on the internet. First of all, because typically the average person does not expect a 4-year-old boy to suffer so much from COVID. But this boy, who apparently had no symptoms before, suddenly goes into a coma, and then when they check, they find that the poor kid has COVID-19, and everything that is wrong with him is related to COVID-19. The question I'm asking myself is this one: does interrupted mental development have a long-term effect? You see, if you think of a coma, a kid going into a coma as a gap on a straight line upward slope of a graph that is talking about mental growth of a child. And then all of a sudden, you stop that growth, like a plant which is watered every day, and then one day it doesn't get any nutrition. Obviously, from that perspective, that negative, very negative perspective, you realize there's a long-term effect. Obviously, there is stunted growth that is carried over throughout. Of course, there is an element of recovery depending on what actions, interventions are carried out after this. My point is this, that one whole year of keeping our children at home may have major repercussions on their mental growth. But, well, luckily the boy recovered. He has since recovered, and I'm sure he's okay now. We teachers, we educators have to ask ourselves about what we need to do to forestall possible problems in society in the future occasioned by an educational coma that has happened since the month of March this year, and is going on and will continue for some while. What I like to think of this is that there are two ways people look at education. You see, there are people who think of education as something you go to the market and buy, like groceries. And therefore, if the market is closed today, which is a Wednesday, you could always go on Friday and buy. I mean, if we close the circle of education for 10 months, for 11 months, for 12 months, we could always go back next year, right? Well, that's one way of looking at education. And it is a mistaken notion of education. In fact, that's not what education is. We have studies that have shown that school has a big effect on children. Interruptions of school are not desirable at all. And that is why perhaps you see the government trying its best to get back our children to school. We as educators need to support this. And we need to take the relevant measures, the required measures, to make sure that it works, so that we don't endanger them and we don't endanger ourselves. School has a significant effect, a positive effect on well-being and eventual life in society and relationships. And a gap in schooling could be devastating to the individual, children, but also to society. Who is going to take care of this if not us who are in the field, are at the center of education? So the thing is this, where do we start? So I'll go to question number 2, which is the issue of attitudes. There's so many things we could talk about here, but I like, just for today, to mention that, like in every profession, you will find people with positive attitudes. And we love our colleagues who have a positive attitude. We love our education managers who have a positive attitude, who look at things positively and look for solutions. Of course, every now and then we meet people who drag us down, who put obstacles and challenges in our way. It's very important to have positive attitudes. The question is this: I'm looking at myself as a teacher. Does my positive attitude lead to good performance? Or is it my good performance that will lead to positive attitudes? So this is very important for me to think about, because if it is positive attitude leading to performance, it means then I need to develop a positive attitude. What do the studies say? Precisely that. That in fact, though both of them lead to each other, a positive attitude leads to good performance, and good performance leads to a positive attitude. In fact, it's more positive attitude towards performance. We need to generate positive attitudes with our learners. We need to generate positive attitudes with our colleagues. We need to generate positive attitudes with ourselves for us to have good performance. The third question that I'm asking myself today is whether teaching is a skill that I'm born with. Was I born a teacher? Or is it something that I've been learning over time? Do we make teachers, or do we discover teachers? Which is which? Well, the one thing we notice is that when we look back to our own teachers, we realize that the best teachers were those that had charism or charisma. They could take initiative. They created direction for us. They had a certain intensity and a persistence. Now, what this means is that there is indeed a certain amount of inborn talent. I think all of us would agree with that. Just some people, even without training, you just say, wow, this guy is a born teacher. He has the qualities of a teacher just like that. But we also know, surely, that there are many things that we have learned along the way, and that there are many things, even with inborn talent, we need to acquire. Training is extremely important, and it's lifelong, and we cannot stop. We have to develop our skills as teachers throughout our lives, as long as we are called teachers. And that means even beyond retirement. Once again, we go back to that so-called theory, the theory that education is a grocery market. I call it the Sokomjinga approach. Sokomjinga approach says that education is a product. So even if something goes wrong now, no problem, we can always go and get it later. But as I said earlier, no. Education is developmental. It's constant. It keeps moving. It cannot wait. If our children are at home, there is something there, either learning or not learning. There is something happening, whether positive or negative. If there's a hole in the head, that hole could get bigger. And therefore, so what do we do? What are we going to do about this? Where can I therefore get that good attitude? How do I become motivated as a teacher, as an educator? And what's that positive attitude? Yeah. And we know about these. We have talked about intrinsic motivation, extrinsic motivation. I'm sure you have attended many talks where the classic temperaments were outlined for you, people who are sanguine, phlegmatic, choleric, and so on. And it must have been explained to you that we have two types of motivation, extrinsic and intrinsic. We are familiar with that, yes. And we know that extrinsic motivation isn't as effective as intrinsic motivation. So even though we need both, we need to be motivated externally, but generally we have to develop our own motivation. And this is teacher enhancement. We need to enhance ourselves. And so even though in that classic arrangement, it's very old, I'm sure you may have been told that there are some other theories of temperament. It's not just this one, but this is the classic one because it was developed during, well, sometime between the 7th century and the 15th century. And they say people who are sanguine are people who are typically poor at tolerating boredom. They are buoyant, they are optimistic and carefree, choleric, a different type of breed of person. And these things we are born with. But we can determine how they influence us, how they influence our behavior. And you might have been told that for a teacher, the best personality type is the phlegmatic. Why? Because the phlegmatic person is a people person. Okay? He seeks interpersonal harmony, close relationships, and things like that. He makes it a point to preserve relationships with people. He avoids conflict. He's always trying to mediate between others and restore peace and harmony. And therefore, typically teachers are said to be phlegmatic. It's not enough to look at how we are made. We have to determine our own behavior freely, irrespective of animal instincts and irrespective of our DNA. We can work towards being happier because a happy teacher obviously generates a particular type of learning space, atmosphere that affects our learners. We have to work towards being happier, better teachers. An efficient teacher is less anxious because he's like a well-oiled, well-tuned engine which hums and purrs softly as it moves. So what do? We need to learn the skills. We need to improve those skills continuously. We have to be reading about computer science ourselves, okay? We have to use technology that is connected in our profession, and we have to be good at it because efficiency is important. So I want to stop there and come to a few tips, very practical tips. What would I give you? 3 of them. Be a reflective person. Make notes. Take notes. Stop and reflect periodically. Okay? And I suggest that you use an app like Keep. Keep is very easy to use. It's available to all of us in Google. It's part of the Google ecosystem. If you just go to your browser and type keep.google.com, you find that you have space there for taking notes all the time, private notes that are tied to your Google account and password. Even if your phone or your laptop is stolen, you can always log in again and go to keep.google.com. You can download it onto your phone. It's a really easy app. And the good thing is that it connects to the rest of the Google ecosystem. Okay? Let us be people who are reflective. Now, if you begin to use Keep for keeping notes, for taking notes, you suddenly find that the whole world of learning, of self-enhancement opens out in front of you. You become better organized. You can share your keep notes with your colleagues. You don't have to share the entire account. You can share a particular note. Tip number 2, start learning. Don't wait, drive your own learning. And since I'm saying I want to give you practical tips, why don't you register on edX? edX is amazing. You can do free courses there online. Okay, learn about computer science, learn about teaching, pedagogies of teaching online, and so on. And finally, okay, lead a balanced life. Remember that for you to be efficient, you need to think about all aspects of your life: relationships and family, work and health, your own health, leisure, and God. Not in that order. Obviously, you may want to put God first. It's up to you. But have a balanced life. And that's all I wanted to tell you today. However, as Kennedy mentioned, we have teacher enhancement programs going on at Strathmore University. We've been teaching a course called Foundations of Teaching with Technology recently. And we have an intermediate course also for those who are already familiar with how to use Zoom and Google Classroom and so on. How do you design learning activities for an online environment, and how is that different from face-to-face environment and things like that? And if you would like to know more about that, just contact Masimukulu, and there is the email there, mmukulu@strathmore.edu. Thank you very much.
What is the role of the admin with regards to motivation?
We do not realize that educational management, educational administration is extremely important. It's part of the holistic perspective to work. So if you are in administration, please treat your people well, okay? Be democratic, use the accepted principles of administration, because it definitely affects motivation. I am obviously affected and demotivated or motivated by the actions of administration in my office, obviously, and all of us, we can't deny that, and many other things that come externally from the work environment. However, remember, there is intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. So it's always good to remember that the really major area in motivation is intrinsic. That is why you find two people in the same staff room, subject to the same conditions, earning the same salary, but one is amazing, okay, always smiling, happy, enjoying his work, going about life like he's won $1 million, and his colleague, the exact opposite. Okay? Why? Because there is intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, and intrinsic is the one you are in charge of, and there you can do a lot. So we can influence administration ourselves, okay, by the way we act, the way we talk to those people. But I definitely agree with you that yes, administration has a part to play in motivation.
My name is Zach. I'm a teacher of English and literature at Wahundura High School. And I want to begin by appreciating the speakers who got before me and highlighted a number of things as far as integration of ICT learning is concerned. I'll just share bits of insights from what I've gathered from the time I went for the training on ICT. And so I'm just titling my sharing as digital literacy and ICT resources. So I'll just highlight there's just a few things that I talk about. One is the technology I adopted, the interventions and support that I received in the course of trying to develop this. The challenges faced. We will also talk about the gaps I've identified as far as ICT integration learning is concerned. And finally, just to say something about promoting computer studies in schools. From after interacting with the iLab Africa, the technologies I've adopted as far as in incorporating ICT in education includes the use of interactive whiteboard. That is, in my school, I happen to have been lucky. As the last speaker said, administration sometimes are very, very important as far as incorporating ICT in education. So once I proposed this, the school was able to get us one interactive whiteboard. This has been so instrumental because students all of a sudden developed interest in coming to the computer lab and just interacting with the whiteboard. And even the teachers have been so instrumental. Number two is the use of a web-based portal. The use of a web-based portal that has also been key. And I'll just share with you maybe a sample of a web-based portal that has to incorporate ICT in education. And it has the home for the teachers, about us, students' life, and the e-learning. So when you get to the e-learning, we have this kind of setup whereby there are various resources. So if you go to, let's say, English resources, then you're able to get this for OneNotes. Then we also have this for various subjects. So this portal that I'm going to open includes something like the video presentations. So if I open, for example, the PAL chapter 3, then you'll have this is a content that is part of what I'm using to develop just to incorporate ICT in learning. Then the use of PowerPoint slides has also been incorporated that in the learning. The use of PowerPoints. Now, during the COVID period, there are a number of aspects that I used. The first speaker mentioned Google Classrooms. So again, we have incorporated Google Classrooms in the use of I tried to integrate ICT in education, the use of Zoom, and finally the use of an app that we call Zeraki Learning and WhatsApp. Now, what happens on Zeraki Learning is, as a school, we are able to upload assignments there, and so that students can access at their own particular time. So the support provided, I want to appreciate to begin with is iLab Africa for giving us support as far as this is concerned, because most of the times I've always been consulting with Ken and Philomenas just to ensure that we get the best as far as integration of ICT learning is concerned. Then through Zeraki Learning, they've also given us a platform that we use to reach out to the students, and lately we also engaged Angaza Elimu. Now, Angaza Elimu is also an online platform that helps us to just, teacher develops content, uploads on the website, and each and every student as we speak has a username and a password that they can just log in and access the content that is online. The challenges that I've experienced in the process of this is obsolete or few computers. My computer lab has just 11 computers vis-a-vis a population of about 600. So that has really posed a constraint on integration of ICT learning. Then lack of ICT infrastructure, because even for these computers, even for the portal that you've developed to be accessed to by all the computers, we need thorough networking, but not all the computers are connected. Then we have a generational gap. We are in a staff room that is quite dynamic. So there's that gap between the teachers and the students, because the staff rooms are made up of various teachers of various age groups. So we discover that ICT learning is majorly used or adopted by relatively younger teachers. Those who are advanced in age, they really fear this, because as we speak, there are even some teachers that have never accessed the computer lab. So the gaps that I've identified in the process of trying to add or to use ICT in learning is what I call infodemics. One, there is too much non-standardized content online, and therefore teachers who are using this online content need to be very, very keen as far as getting that digital content is concerned. Most of them are non-standardized. Some of them we have to get and customize in our situation. Then reliability of the information that is found online is also something that we need to bridge the gap because in most cases, when you Google something, everybody poses as an authority. But when it comes to the examination from NEC, there are authorities and there are books that are recognized by in the Orange Book. And then number 3 is lack of training. We see that the teachers who are advanced in age, they really want to leave ICT for young teachers. So these are the gaps that I think through the person, the first speaker, Mungai, who was in charge of semester, I think they can try to develop, try to engage teachers who are kind of elderly, because when it comes to adopting ICT learning, then all teachers should be brought on board. So as far as promoting computer science is concerned in a school, I think the government or through the Ministry of Education should just develop a policy framework trying to avail materials or computers to virtually, if possible, because I know the government can do it, to schools in Kenya, so that by Form 1 or Form 2, computer studies can be made compulsory. This will ensure that these students develop interest in computers, and that will help them in joining the coding. I want to thank God for iLab Africa, because we are one of the beneficiaries of the coding clubs. And since that concept was introduced here, students developed a concept through the learning that they've been doing online. I still receive questions about the codings, and the interest that this has sparked on the students is just great. So I bet that even for us to promote computer science in schools, these coding clubs, I want to encourage most teachers as possible to just register. And then number 3 is the integration of ICT in class. We also need to acknowledge that computer or ICT is not left just for computer studies teachers or for science subjects. Everybody can be part of this process. And the question that was posed is that can a teacher develop content? Yes, much of the content that I use for this process are actually homegrown. I make them in the office, and I use them for teaching and for learning.
So I'll just want to give my experience in, so far we were using Zoom, Google Classroom, whereby we used it to give assignment to students, and we were also able to give exams. And then from that, we were able to analyze the exams. We were also able to use Google Meet, Microsoft Teams, and also Open Broadcaster software, whereby the teachers we were encouraged to create scenes whereby we had introduction, we had to develop the main content for the lesson, and then the wrapping up, that is conclusion. So we had to divide this with this Open Broadcaster software, we had to divide the content into 3, and then after creating the content and uploading the videos, we had to teach without being online. And actually this is what now we are using in school as of now. When the Form 4s have come back to school, we are now able to teach offline. So the teacher is able to just download whatever that he needs, and then after that he can carry his laptop to class or in the library, and is able to project what he wants to teach without having the internet. And then we were also able to utilize YouTube, whereby we were able to create videos, and after creating the videos, we were also able to upload them online. And also we realized that we had a feature in Microsoft Word whereby we were using the Creator Studio, whereby the teacher can also introduce a lesson using images and also integrate with the videos, and also be able to teach offline instead of maybe having internet in school, because as you know, most of the public schools, we have challenges with the internet. And we also were able to learn and use Adobe Spark to design concepts. So with this, we were encouraged to use, when you want maybe to teach an idea to the students, you have to come up with images, and with the images now you are able to show the students, and then from that now it's easier for you to teach, unlike when you are teaching theoretically or using the old way of teaching. Then, then we look at the support that was provided. So the Ministry of Education was able to offer the public schools Microsoft Teams, and with this we were able to integrate online learning, and we were able now to give assignments to students and divide them or group them into groups, and also do analysis of the quizzes that we gave the students to do. I also attended an online session with Angaza Elimu, training on e-learning, on how we use the pedagogy pillars and collaboration in a virtual classroom and student progress analytics. And also with this, we were also able to capture details of our students online, and the content that so far we've created students now, we are encouraging them to go online and get the content from a portal of a teacher, especially now like me, who has already created some content, and now my students are able to go online and get assignments that I've given them, the content that I've given them, and then at their free time, they are able to learn on their own. Another thing is with Semasters, I've seen some of our teachers joining Semasters online, and they were taken through Google Classroom on how they can teach on Google Classroom, and which I've seen my peers doing it. And also, we also got support from Safaricom in terms of there was an arrangement with the school whereby they offered cheap bundles, whereby we encouraged our learners to use that instead of maybe the normal buying, which seemed to be expensive for the students. And another support that we have organizations providing to the teachers is multimedia, mobile learning with multimedia, recording and editing podcasts. So a teacher is able to create a podcast, you record it and you edit it, and then after editing the podcast, you stream it online. So this is good for teaching students, and also for uploading it online, and the teachers are able to use it to teach the students. So the challenges that I was able to see, or even some of them that I've experienced as a teacher, was there was a digital divide in terms of, for the teachers that did not have information, or even for the students that lacked information on what was going on online, then they were not able to access the online resources that was given by the Ministry of Education, by the Semasters, or even as teachers while we were teaching. Again, another reason was lack of technological knowledge, whereby most of the teachers had issues with dealing with technology or even using the technological devices, and hence this limited how teachers could teach, or even we had a situation where some teachers backed, and because of course fear of technology, or not comfortable using the technology. Another issue that of course has affected most of the students, if I can say half of them, is lack of ICT infrastructure, whereby you have places where there's no internet connection, places whereby they don't even have the devices to use, so that they're able to access the online resources that have been provided for free. Another issue or challenge was student engagement, in terms of you could find that students could not reveal their videos, or you're not able to see what the student was doing, and you could just point out at a student to answer questions, and you could realize that student was off the lesson. She was not able to answer the lesson because she was not following up. So it's good to encourage the students to reveal their faces when you're teaching, so that there's that interaction between the teacher and the student. And again, most of the teachers, they are not tech savvy. And again, this was a hurdle or a challenge for the teachers, or even for the school, because that meant some teachers were overloaded with lessons, because of us having a generation whereby we have teachers who are 50 and above, and were not comfortable in using the generation. Another challenge that I faced, or some of the teachers faced in our institution, was we decided after a 6-week period that we were supposed to give exams to the students. And there was a challenge because you could find we were using Zoom to monitor how exams were being run, but in the process, a student could get disconnected and the student had to connect back. So you're wondering, is it the internet that has a problem, or is it intentional that the student has left the exam environment? So that was also a challenge on how to monitor how the exam was going on, because you had students leaving and others coming back, and others could leave completely and maybe write a message later that I was not able to continue the exam because I got disconnected or I did not have bundles. Or again, you could find that you've given them time to give back the exam, the feedback for the exam, or upload the exams on Google Classroom, and others could end up uploading exams 3 or 4 hours later. So this was a challenge, and we really had to think of ways, better ways to come up or to give out our exam. And in as much as we came up with policies, at the end of the day, they did not work well because the challenges of internet connections were there, and you are not able to prove that was it internet or was it that the student had issues. Another thing is the perceived gaps. So the gaps that I felt that we still have up to now is there is difficulty in creating effective online materials and activities or assignments in subjects that require a high degree of hands-on demonstration and practice. So a good example I can give a subject like home science, whereby the teacher was wondering how could she show the students on how to cook, or subjects like chemistry, whereby the teacher was teaching while he or she was at home, and yet the apparatus were in school. So teaching theoretically a practical subject proved to be a challenge to the teacher. And of course, in terms of delivery, of course, the content was not well passed. Another issue was absence of ICT national standards in education. So far we don't have standards that are going to help in schools. So I feel that the Ministry of Education should come in handy and try to come up with standards which are going to be applied in all the schools. Then there's inadequate teacher professional development, and that is why we are saying we have a group of teachers who backed off from teaching online because they were not comfortable with the technology, or they've not actually really interacted with the technology. Then there is also minimal support from the administrators with regard to ICT strategy. So in terms of, if you find that the principal is really not tech savvy, so she or he is not going to really support IT in the school, or even when you could maybe propose the schools going ahead and maybe paying some amount of money for the Zoom instead of having the 40 session, the school could engage in paying a bit of money on the Zoom, so that now we could have lengthy hours. You could find that the principals could really be reluctant on that. And then, of course, we ended up teaching the 40-minute session. The lessons could end, and then you could tell the students to connect again. And also we found this a challenge also when we are also giving exams, because you could tell the students after 40 minutes, you need to connect back. And in the meantime, you never know whether the student could have picked a book and checked on the question that was there in the exam. Then to promote computer science in education, I feel the first step that the ministry or even the Code for Kids should do is capacity building for the teachers. So once you give the knowledge to the teachers, then it will be easy for that knowledge to be disseminated to the students. So that is, I think, the first thing that we should do. We should have enough workshops to take the teachers through, or even in terms of the units that we are going to teach the students. We feel like for some of the teachers, they need to be taken through the courses. And then now from that, the teachers will be comfortable to teach the students at their free time, or when a student wants a bit of help, then the teacher who is there, it's easier for the students to reach out to the teacher and like the facilitators. Another thing is maybe to encourage schools through the Ministry of Education to invest in infrastructure, internet connectivity, which is still a challenge to most of the schools, and also devices. So initially, we could say that mobile phones were not allowed in school, but with this situation that has come up now, I feel we should change that perception, and instead of maybe having mobile phones, the school should invest in tablets in schools, whereby we will have blended learning. Instead of just a theoretical or one-way teaching, the students are going to be engaged to emphasize or to help the students understand better on some concepts or ideas. The other thing is, we would recommend the Ministry of Education to come up with a way of mainstreaming computer science in the curriculum to help in fostering the 21st and to use the 21st century skills. So I think this will come in handy. Instead of even having computer studies as an optional subject, I feel we've reached an era whereby each student should be equipped with the computer skills. So once you have the computer skills, then you are able to maneuver or handle any subjects. And also for the teachers, once they are equipped with the computer skills, they will be comfortable to teach any subject or even content way of teaching. So what I would like to recommend for us teachers is to have self-care. That is, we should have time ourselves to read ourselves, that let's not think about the students only, let's think of ourselves. How are we going to improve ourselves? That is what I'm trying to pass across. So we have many online resources that are free now because of this situation that has arisen. So we have edX, which is offering many courses that help us to grow professionally. Some courses that the Ministry of Education has given through Ajira, whereby we can take that chance, improve ourselves. Another thing that felt that maybe pass across is in terms of being professional, in terms of our dressing. In as much as it is a virtual classroom, we should dress the same way we dress when traditional class. Another thing is also resources. Let's not be comfortable with the resources that we are developing only. Let's go and look for the external resources. There are so many resources that are outside there to help us integrate ICT in education, or to help us drive a point home, which is going to help students understand better or an easier way, and like taking so much time trying to develop the content. Then we keep it simple when we are teaching the students. So in as much as we are learning these technologies that we want to use to the students, let's just try to and use 2 or 3 at a time. Let's not integrate so many at one go, and then we end up confusing the students. Then also we should be savvy with technology. So this will help us to integrate the various tools, technical tools that are there to help us facilitate learning to the students. Another thing is we should also have a routine, establish a routine with our students or with your students in terms of when maybe a student is online, this is what you expect the student to do. When you log in into the virtual classroom, we expect you to show your face. You should have one-on-one interaction with the student. You should dress appropriately, etc. And this also applies also to the teacher. And then we should also have to create a virtual small study groups. In as much as you're teaching a big group, we should also think of these slow learners And with the routine that you've given, whereby you're having an extra hours for you to interact with your student later, that is offline, then this is the time that you should have have small study groups with the students who you feel they are slow learners, and get more time or give them more material to study. Then of course this will help them to be at par with their peers. Then another thing that I thought of is to set online office hours when your students should know when to reach you. Communicate to your students and tell them, from this time to this time, I'll be online, then I'll be waiting for any questions that you may want me to check or give feedback on.
Well, in terms of support, of course, from our institution, Samaster, does support teachers in areas of ICT integration. But also we work hand in hand with other partners that will be able to assist, especially in terms of maybe even sharing and connectivity. We're in partnership with organizations such as Google Education through an organization called Power IT, where we hope that the teachers will be able to sign up for a G Suite platform, and with that they'll be able to even have a domain name and have the full features of like the Google Classroom. And of course, there are other partners that also come along seeking to, reach out to schools. So maybe I can just encourage the teachers to continually seek out information even from Samaster, even from KICD. They have a lot of resources that teachers can use. I believe maybe the teachers here have heard of something called Kenya Education Cloud, which is hosted by KICD. And there are a lot of resources that the teachers can access and use.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of you for making the time to join us today as we conducted our conference. This year has been quite unique because a lot of our activities have had to shift online. So it's great to see the participation of a lot of teachers in our activities. We had a lot of plans for the Kids Can Code project, but given the current situation, we've had to adapt. And I'm glad that we are still getting participation from all of you. So I'd like to thank you all very much for that. So mine is to just give a short vote of thanks. I'd like to begin with our speakers. They have given a lot of insights today, and I think there's a lot that all of us have learned from the discussions that we've had. Thank you, Martin, for giving us a breakdown of different tools that can be used to enhance teaching, and it's really exciting to see what Samaster is doing in terms of training of teachers on technology enhanced learning, because it's not just now that we've had to adapt to online teaching, but I feel like this is something that's going to be prioritized even as we move forward, even post-COVID. Thank you so much also, Ian Wairua of Strathmore. You've given very good insights, especially concerning the psychology of teaching and not just the technical aspect of teaching. So thank you so much for that. Most notably was adopting good attitudes towards teaching, which I'm sure a lot of our teachers are going to adopt moving forward. For the SU team, Linda, Kennedy, Victor, for the support that you're offering the teachers in this project. We've had to really think through how we are going to implement this project, and so far I think we're all doing our best to ensure that we're engaging teachers, we're engaging learners in the project, and we can't really say thank you enough. And finally, most importantly, to our teachers, thank you so much for making the time to join us today. I hope that you have learned a lot from the discussions that we've had here. Thank you so much to Zach and Rosaline also for sharing your experiences. I know you're going to be contacted by the rest of the teachers here, because you've mentioned some of the things that are assisting you in engaging your students, not only those who return to school, but also those who are at home. And it is our wish that we're going to establish a sort of community of practice for our teachers, not just for this project, but even as we move ahead, because one of our key focus areas at iLab is to see how we can support teacher professional development from a perspective of computer science education and also technology integration in the classroom. So we'd like to invite you all to submit your contacts with us so that as we continue to receive funding for these projects, we know we can reach out to you to take part in our projects and also just to exchange ideas across the board. So thank you all very much. And with those remarks, I think we are now open to closing the conference. Thank you for staying with us. Thank you all so much for your time.